So we'll just kick into the first screen. So just pre-engagement. So Emery, feet shoulder width apart and pointing forward. Why would you be looking for that?
Well, it should be a big key for the power position. You know, your stability is there with your feet shoulder width apart, and whether you're standing upright or you're crouched over getting into the scrum position, that feet shoulder width apart gives you the stability you need to hold your own body weight, and you're set up then to deliver the power through.
Yeah, they're really good. It's like a lot of aspects of the game of rugby. Again, getting that strong position. It's like anything of anyone can relate to playing golf. If you're teeing off, you're getting that your feet shoulder width apart. That gets you in that your spine aligned and in that good strong position. So head neutral position and looking straight, not looking up or down.
Yeah, and that's something I think when you get into that crouch position and you're bent over, you know, you often do see it even in drills. People just for wanting to look up, they look up and their chin is pointing out and their eyes are looking up, and that's wrong. You need to teach that you have to be a straight line, and we use the example of getting the handle of a brush. If you can put the handle of a brush up your spine from your tailbone all the way up your spine and up to the back of your head, so your head isn't pushing it backwards, it's balancing on your spine and a straight line straight up through the back of your head, and that's neutral. It's not about the chin out, it's a neutral spine, so you're actually looking down at the ground. I remember a coach used to say to me, when you're getting into the scrum, you shouldn't be looking at your opposition, you should be looking through your eyebrows at them, and that's as good as a view you're going to get, because you shouldn't be looking up.
Brilliant. Again, anyone, if they want to type in a message at any stage, feel free to do so. So chest out and shoulder blades back.
So yeah, that would be, again, making sure that your power and your spine and your body isn't going to be compromised. So if you have a big chest, and it really means, I remember I used to nearly feel a burning in my chest. That's how much I used to really try and stick my chest out. And then I used to hear them say, pretend you're pinching an orange between your shoulder blades, and you really have to concentrate. Like, that's something that I used to have to work on in the gym as well, about not just pulling your shoulders back, it's actually pinching your shoulder blades back as well. And it's just, again, making sure that nobody's going to bend your back, because once you bend your back and you start to curl, you lose the power and you're no good to them at the front row. You need to be constantly pushing and exerting power forward, and you need a big chest for that.
It's really important. So to keeping that back straight for the power to come through. It's something we teach when it comes to the tackle. If you pull your arms together in your chest, your shoulder blades, you're obviously a lot stronger. So especially when you're going into the tackle or you're going clean in a ruck as well. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see some of that now in some of the footage. The tight core, stomach muscles clinched.
Yeah, that just really keeps you really strong and rigid. You can't be you can't go into the scrum, you know, floppy and kind of unsure and thinking, oh, will I fall over a little bit? You need to be nearly really rigid, and you're tightening your core muscles also helps you tighten your back, tighten your shoulders, tighten your glutes. It just is a knock-on effect. It's one of the steps that you take. You tighten your shoulders, your core is next. You know, it's a process that you go through. Everything needs to be rigid and ready to engage.
Okay, so it is all a process, and if you forget about one, you're going to fail. So yeah, no, that's really good. And the hips tilted, bum pointing out and up.
Yeah, so you know, you've all heard the duck arse, I think, is one that, you know, people use a lot. It's that where you're not where it's because your shoulders are pinched back, and it's to make sure that your I suppose really that your spine is going forward, because if you're not making that bum tilt, your spine isn't fully erected, if that's the right word. You're just not fully engaged. If every part of you isn't nearly squeezing or burning in some way, you're not fully ready to go in.
Yeah, no, really good. So what I'll do is jump into the videos, and the first video is just a warm-up exercise, and I think this is a great exercise for any team or any player in a position, because again, it's nice and controlled, but you're getting an awful amount of movement within the warm-up. So we'll just have a quick look, and we'll have a chat at the end about it. That's Emery and Ciara on the right. If you were to give Ciara any advice there, Emery.
I would say maybe you can see there that her knees could be lower to the ground. She's not, you can see that her arse is kind of up in the air, whereas
Yeah,
she needs to have that tabletop position. And it is a burner. It's a burner on the quads, but that's what it's all about. Like the scrum position is a burner on your legs, and you need to get your body ready for it. Like you really need to have that neutral spine the
yeah,
whole time, not arse up and head down, because
yeah. If we just
if,
pause
I
it, we
think that's
pause it there
legal.
now.
I think if I'm not 100% sure on the rules, but I think I've seen somewhere before that if you go into a scrum, maybe it's not illegal, maybe it's just not supposed to happen. If you go in with your shoulders below your hips, that the ref can call you on
Yeah,
it or something like that. As in, you need to be, your hips, your shoulders can't be below your hips, because really then you're
yeah.
driving into the ground.
So yeah, no, that's it. And I think if you go in that, that's it. Your power is going to go. You're more than likely the scrum will collapse. So just on that, I think looking at it's really important. We looking at your hips. So the way I'd look at it is your knee is the center of the clock, and I'd say your hips is close to maybe 1 o'clock, which we'd hope to get at. But if you look at just in that one, Kira's, it's just pretty much nearly 12 o'clock. So
Mm.
on that, the power is coming from your feet. It's only going to go up the way,
Yeah.
or you're going to go straight forward. So I think that point of getting your leg back into that proper position is really important. So this is a great example for all coaches to watch out for. And this is your warm up. And again, just getting them to teach the proper technique of it. And if you look at that, if you look at Anne-Marie's back nice and straight, head neutral, but Kira, just because she's too high and her knees aren't that nice, we call it working height off the ground. So if you get your knees down closer to the ground, now for Kira to get her knees down closer to the ground, all she has to do is just adjust her feet. So let her feet back a small bit more, and she'll get that nice working height off the ground and that nice straight back. Okay, we'll just play on here now. Two of them want a little chat, how to adjust. So again, so I suppose, and just there now, I think what's happened then is a talk to during it to Kira about getting her knees that closer, letting her feet back that small bit, and now she's adjusted into a lot better position. Your own position there, what would you think, Anne-Marie?
Yeah, not too bad. Maybe a little bit too. If what I'm looking at that there, I feel like I want to bring my legs up a little bit, bring them back up under me a little bit more. That just that.
Yeah.
I mean an inch, maybe 2 inches, because I'm getting into the position. I look there now as if I was in the middle of a push forward, and I need to chase my feet. If I got any further than that, if my legs, that angle was, let's say, any bigger between my knees there, I'd be saying you need to chase your feet back up, that you've let them go back too far.
Really good point, because I think when you overextend, and that's what we call overextend, that small bit. So you're gone from 1 o'clock nearly to 2 o'clock, and it's to keep that. So yeah, no, brilliant. We watch it out to the end now. Again, this is brilliant. Two players mirroring each other, trying to find those short little movements.
And
so just that.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I was going to say, like, the importance of going backwards and forwards and side to side, because everyone you do, whether it be backwards or forwards or left or right, you know, you tend to have a stronger movement. Like going forwards for me isn't too bad. Going to the left for me isn't too bad. But then I find going to the right harder, and I find going backwards harder, because there's more weight on the front of your body going backwards, because you're really controlling yourself from your hands, and your legs are just kind of going behind you. So it's so important to go forwards and backwards. You're working all different parts, and you know, realizing kind of, oh right, Jesus, that was hard. Now I'll have to do more of going backwards, because I wasn't very good at it that time. You know, it's not just going forwards, it's, you know, all the ways, all the directions.
Brilliant. Yeah, no, that's brilliant. And just on that, like, because again, we will sometimes go backwards too in a scrum, but again, and we think we're going to talk about those short, tiny little steps, how important they are in every direction. Because I think if you lift your foot up at all, if you lift your foot up high, are you in bother, Anne-Marie? If you were trying to make.
Yeah, definitely. Like even in that, doing that drill alone, when you lift your leg up, if you were to, you'd wobble. You're literally like a stool that someone's kicked off one of the legs. And if that happens in a scrum, now even though you're supported all around you in a scrum, if you're working off one leg, and that has happened to me before, where the scrum, for whatever reason, we'd be losing the scrum, or I didn't go in at the right angle, or I was overpowered by the loose head. But if you find you're working off one leg, it means there's something wrong, and that does happen. And you need to know how to try and, you know, get around it and twist your body and make sure you're working from two legs and not just one, because sometimes it does happen. You end up working off one leg, but ideally you want to have equal pressure coming through both legs.
Brilliant. And we'll just jump through to the next video.
This one?
So, yeah, we jumped through, just on to the next one. So just we'll watch just first, and then we'll just look at this first, your Tess and Ciara, but I want you to talk through your own setup in a second, Anne-Marie.
Yeah.
So just your own setup here.
So there now, when I find to remind myself of the big chest, like it looks like a big over-exaggerated movement, but that, for me as a tight head, that big chest is so important, because it really is. That's what the loose head is trying to attack on me. So me as a tight head, and for anyone in the front row, I don't have as much experience with the loose head, but I do know as tight head, having that big chest and that prominent chest is massive, because if the loose head curls my back at all, or actually I think it comes up in one of the videos later on where Ciara does do a good job of putting pressure on my chest, and my chest starts to concave, because she was winning the fight. So it's really important that you get that big chest. So the first thing I do is, you can see kind of stamping my feet, because I actually was wearing the wrong boots there, but I was trying to get a grip on my toes, and your toes nearly have to act like your fingers. So from the bottom up, let's say from your body, working from the bottom up to the top, first thing is, like JP said, like that feet shoulder width apart, and then get the toes stuck into the ground well. Pull those shoulders back, bring the elbows right back so that you're pinching your shoulder blades, big chest, and then you start to get into that duck arse where you're ready. So all you have to do is literally hinge, like literally just hinge at the hips. There should be no more movement. I'm set up in a standing position as I would for the scrum. I just need to bend down to that, maybe whatever, not quite 90 degrees, but you know, that kind of an angle.
Yeah, no, brilliant. And just this exercise then of getting Ciara, another player, going around testing you. So again, brilliant. This is something we could work on now straight away with young players, just getting those key points, getting those feet shoulder width apart, and pulling your chest back, getting that strong chest. So yeah, really good point of that hinge. So we'll jump on to the next one. So just this one, and we're just getting into that strong power position. Again, I think that yourselves, would you use this exercise much in warm-ups for?
Oh, we would, yeah. And before a scrum, this one, and you can see Ciara is kind of walking around. These ones, this one now is what we would, she's kind of getting up and walking, but what we would have to do in the drill is the person in the, let's say the tabletop position or the bear crawl position, whatever you want to do, they have to stay, now my knees aren't on the ground there, they're actually up off the ground, so I'm holding myself in that, let's say like there now, just holding in that power position. And then Ciara in the pink hat, rather than actually standing upright and shuffling around, she would have to stay in that diagonal. So both partners are working, and it's keeping constant pressure on me. So I never get a break. There's constantly weight on me. And also for her, she'll be constantly in that diagonal position. It's like an elevated press up position, really. And she works her hands, just shuffling her hands the whole way around, and she does a whole perimeter circle of me. And you can see she kind of stood up there a little bit, but the idea is that she keeps her weight on me the whole time, and even the head. And it's a great one for the head, because you don't realize till you get in there how much work is on the back of your head and down your upper spine, and up the back of your neck. So much work, and it's something that is often neglected in strengthening exercises, and things like that, or S&C programs, unless you're in the front row. And now I would have done an awful lot of stuff like, holding weights on my head and stuff like that, but that is very important, because it reminds people that, oh my God, my head, like you can see my head is tilting straight away, where it's not, I'm really not strong enough for her to hold the weight. But it's something that you need to be aware of in the scrum, that build up that part of the muscle as well.
And that S&C side of things will come in time for them. But for yourself, if to get into that nice position, would it take many nights training for you working with someone if you were starting off from scratch again to be able to get into that nice position?
So sorry, do you mean like
so just if you were starting off scratch, you were going from second row into front row again, would it take you long, do you think, to be able to get into that position?
Well, no, I think it's a general position that everyone has been doing in rugby, anyone on the field at all. Like, that's really could you imagine a tackle at that angle? It would be ideal. A ruck, that's exactly how we ruck. Everything in rugby is based on this position. So really, it's like, you couldn't say this is just a front row thing. This is across the board, a rugby warm up. It's great for, for front row, for the back of the neck, but really this is a great warm up for anyone playing at all. And no, I don't think it would take, I think maybe two or three nights really, and people should get the idea. And once your body realizes and remembers, yeah, this is how it should feel, your muscle memory has started to kick in already.
Yeah, and for me, I think that's possibly that's the most important part of scrummaging. I think to get yourself, be able to comfortable getting yourself in that good position. So I think for any coach, and hopefully from what we've shown examples of tonight, that we'll be able to get out and work on our players straight away. And again, size wise, because you're going to get that player that's you might get that bigger player, but you get that player that's smaller and they have a better technique. They will outdo the person that might be bigger and stronger because they have that better technique. So what I'm trying to get at there is I just think that for all of us over the next couple of weeks, if we can focus on this, I think that we'll be in a great position by the time we want to start building a scrum. All right. So what we'll do is we'll jump on to the next video. So now we're looking at the key points of engagement. So when we talk about, so this is when we're joining a scrum, or if we're just going to go 1v1, okay, but this is about when the engagement of a scrum. So you aim to position ear to ear with an opponent on crouch position. Why, Emery, would you be looking to go ear to ear?
You want to get, you don't want there to be a big fall in for the bind. You want to be really as close as possible, so that there's a little movement. And you'll often hear that in the refs when they're talking on the matches and things like that. If there's too much impact and too much movement on the impact, it's not safe, first of all, and then also you're not getting a good strong position. If somebody could go off their feet, somebody falls into the left, falls into the right. So when you're ear to ear, you're just centimeters away from full engagement, and you're able to you want to be that close to them. You want to be in their space, because you want to be first to take. There's a very little space there that's up for grabs, and you want to be the one to take that space. And that's, I think, what it means by ear to ear.
Yeah, and that's it. And it's that safety. Again, we see from years ago that the distance and the collision, but if they are ear to ear, there's not much movement. Okay, so again, that it is definitely it's for us, if you're working with your players and they're only going 1v1, make sure they're constantly just getting that ear to ear, that there's no lunging in, because that will cause them to fall and collapse. Engage after following the correct sequence and only after referee's command. I think for all of us that's hugely important. When you're coaching the scrum and you go onto the machine, or that crouch, bind, set, and on the crouch we bind, we get our hands on, and then set, they engage. Okay, so from a strong straight bind high on the form, a strong straight bind high on the opposition back. That's something you see a lot in games, and for referees to say the bind isn't high. So what do we mean by that, Emery?
It'd mean that, if when you're trying to get an advantage, you can see obviously in the men's games, there's always, they're trying to get an advantage over each other, and depending where you put your arm, on their back, on their sleeve, on their shoulder, you're always trying to take an inch or a centimetre here or there that will be overlooked by a ref. But I think, as you say, you teach them right from day one. I was taught right, and then I figured out my own way, but I was taught the correct rules first, and then whatever I picked up along the way.
We'll just talk about the correct rules.
We talk about the good stuff, so we talk about the correct rules. But yeah, a long straight bind, because you don't want them pulling down to pull them down to the side. You don't want them anywhere it's unsafe to be near the neck. And it's just it's I suppose maybe a fairer game when both are using their hands to hold on and not to manipulate their opposition in any way.
Yeah, very good. And a femur back to 1 o'clock and sink her knees close to the ground. I think we've talked about that a good bit already. Get her weight through her chest. I have to remind myself a lot of times when I'm coaching and it'll trigger in my head. I remember that. So can you just explain that again? Get her weight through her chest.
So that would be like the big chest. So it's not about, pushing with your legs and then forgetting what your upper body is doing. You really have to push because it's your chest that is, and your shoulders, obviously. That's the part that's making the contact with the opposition. It might be, a loose, like for me as a tight head, the loose head will be under my chest. For the loose head, they are trying to, they're trying to pop me up, really. They're trying to manipulate my chest and try and, compromise my chest strength. So putting your weight through your chest really is another way of saying big chest, put all your strength and power through your chest. You want to go forward all the time and not just, working through your legs and then forgetting about everything else. It's the tight core, the big chest, the pinched shoulders. Those three things on your upper torso, they're the things that make the power go forward. You want it to be actually expelling through you forward and not, because if you just work your legs and you're not thinking about what your chest is doing, you might drive yourself into the ground or you might end up driving yourself up and out of the scrum. So you want that chest to bring you forward all the time.
Brilliant. And just for myself, I'm delighted being on this tonight just to get that explanation on it. Excellent. Again, spine in line. If your spine in line, obviously it's your power is going that way. If it's curved, your power isn't going direct. So I think that's again a safety aspect too as well.
And I remember when we'd be watching the videos. Sorry now to cut you off. It just there about the spine in line. That's what they used to say as a good cue for the second rows coming in, or to see if you do move on to bringing in second rows, that up against a machine or up against another pack or whatever it is, all spines should be in line. And that if you notice that with different height, particularly in second rows, it can be hard to get that spine in line because one is tall, one has short legs, one has long legs, one arse is in the air, one is come sideways. So if you can mentally kind of spot through their jerseys, okay, well there's their shoulders, that's the way their spine is going. It should be like parallel lines. Ideally, you want parallel lines going through to have the most powerful scrum.
Yeah, really good. Again, with chase your feet, 3 inches chase. Those the little steps we spoke about earlier on. Sorry, just come back. There was a really good question put into the chat there from William Johnson. Should we be bringing these types of position into under 14s and younger? Under 14s, if they're able to just that movement on the ground, I wouldn't have them scrummaging against each other, but just doing that movement and getting them into that good position. Again, brilliant part of your warm up, okay, and all the movement parts of their body, they're going to get moving in that warm up. It'll be brilliant. And again, going back to that short little steps, even if any of us when we're coaching the tackle, we talk about close down the space, but then when we get closer, the short steps again. So again, this is another part of what you'd be doing in your warm up. So listen, absolutely, William, in from under 14, brilliant. Maybe building that up into your warm up. So when they come to under 16, they already have that part of being in that good strong power position and getting that movement. So really good question. Thank you. So we'll just jump on to the next video just on engagement. There's 3 of these, and I'll explain why there's 3. So first one, just pause there. Anne-Marie, yourself?
Yeah, just watching the engagement, I could see my feet tipped up at the back. Now that I suppose that wouldn't happen, we'd be standing up, but on the engagement, a little bit rocky on the engagement, but I think that was our first one. But I think now that we're set up, we're not, I suppose from my own side there, not too bad. Kira could probably drop the knees a little bit, but I think she does for the other ones. Do you know what I mean? It's not, obviously it's a one-on-one situation, so there is going to be that rocking back and over until you find the position, but that's all part of learning how to cope in a scrum as well, because nobody's going to make it easy for you. You have to learn how to manipulate your body and work with your own teammates while working against somebody else. So it creates good body awareness for anybody doing that exercise.
And why would you start off from your knees?
because it gives, I suppose, you're already lower starting, because sometimes, I think I remember when we were doing it a couple of years ago, when we were learning how to do this, we kind of had the choice, do you want to start from your feet or start from your knees? But starting from your knees, you're already in that low position. Whereas when you start from your feet, I used to find that for somebody like I was less experienced at the time, so I was getting these teaching cues. It was, okay, bring your feet back further, bring them back further, bring them back further. So then after about 5 seconds or 10 seconds of trying to bring your feet back further, you're already tired and your body isn't working as well as it was. Whereas now, after 3 seconds, we're already in the scrum position. Whereas when you're standing and going into it, it takes a lot of coaching. That bring that foot back, bring that foot back. Whereas here, your feet are already in the position to go. You literally just have to lift yourself up off the ground.
Brilliant, and that's it. And to learning to be comfortable in that position. That if we do from a standing position, it can be all over the place, and you want them to get into the position early. So as you said, that muscle memory, you're in there, you're feeling comfortable, you nearly feel that full connection from the ground all the way up through you. So that's why we like to start from our knees. Okay, so we'll jump on from that. So that was the first one. This was the second one. And this is, as us as coaches, it's really important. So Kira was in a good position the first time, but now this time, if we look, her position has gone off, is gone straight away. So for ourselves, what we need to, if we just pause it there now, for ourselves, what we need to maybe sometimes get, if you're coaching it on your own, try and have an eye on everyone, but maybe if we can get to a stage where you get all your forwards to understand what a good positioning is. So maybe get them to start working in threes, that they can actually start giving feedback to each other. Because sometimes, they might get in perfect, but then it might go wrong. Their position might go wrong. But if you can get the players to start working in threes, and obviously they're starting to coach it then themselves too as well, they'll pick it up a lot quicker. I hope that makes sense to everyone. I think it's just it's a great way for everyone. That maybe you mightn't have eyes for everyone, but if you can start getting the players from a young age to actually understand what a good position is, and actually getting them to work in threes constantly all the time and giving feedback to each other, I think that's going to speed the process up a lot quicker. So again, this last one, and we just look through. I think yourself on that. What would you think, Anne-Marie?
In this one, just looking at the setup, I'm not sure if it was this one or the one before, but I was seeing that like my head went down above my hips, and you could see, I remember feeling like compromised. I think it was just in the setup. I suppose me and Kira maybe had swapped sides or something, but my head was down below my hips, and I found it very hard to work back up and to lift Kira's weight up with me. So I had compromised myself by going in too low. And that's often, a thing that, again, you learn as you go through them. You have 5 or 6 goals and you realize, oh yeah, that's what I was doing wrong. But for this one, then this was the last one. I can't remember. There was one of them. I thought it was this one. One of them, Kira got her head right under my chest. And again, this is something,
Yeah, I think
it's this one. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think Kira, she did, and I think she got herself into her best position.
Yes,
and
this is probably one. Yeah. And she got her head, and I was saying to her to push up with her head. And you can see there now I'm struggling because she's got herself into a good position and she's getting her head up under my chest. And you can see my arse is rising there and I had to put my foot down because I was losing it because she was pushing her head up under my chest, and my chest began to concave a bit, and my whole body started to give way then. So it's, the smallest, that's what I meant by the smallest movement. All she did was stick her ponytail or lift her head ever so slightly, and immediately my whole body started to go. So it's, when you're in a good position, the smallest movement can be detrimental, or it can be totally advantageous to the person doing it.
Yeah, brilliant. And I think even from watching Kira from the beginning of the session, the warming up, and that once she got into that really good strong position and good technique, she's powerful, very powerful.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So yeah, brilliant. So we'll just jump from that. The next video, this is just again just an exercise you can use. I think just the short little steps. Okay, so again, using the pad and yourself, is that hard to do that, Anne-Marie? Do you find this difficult?
because I hadn't actually done that before, and it was when you reminded me of it. You can see there at the back, just when I started, you had to remind me, big chest, because I was thinking, oh God, how am I going to get over this? And it's wobbling. And I immediately forgot about my body shape, and my back and upper shoulders started to curl. And then when you said big chest, then you could see immediately how my body shape changed, because in a scrum, like I was just curling my shoulders there, and then you said big chest, and then I remembered, oh yes. And because you need to, and it was harder with the big chest, but that's the way a scrum is. A scrum isn't with a curl back. A scrum is you're constantly pushing down through your chest, and it does restrict the movement of your arms then, because like you can see me trying to shuffle forward, and because I was pinning my shoulders back, my arms weren't moving as liberally as I wanted them to. But that's really it. In the scrum, everything is small movements, but it's vital to have that big chest and those pinned shoulder blades, because it's the small movements that you're doing. You're never going to be taking big half-foot long steps. It'll be tiny little inches all the time. And it's good because I found it difficult, but it also was a new way to practice moving my legs while keeping my shoulders pinned back without having to have somebody else there. Like I could do this by myself, if there was an evening that there was nobody to train with me.
Part of the again, if a player is that keen, they'll pull it out, the sausage pad, and they'll start working on it. Because I think if you can master that, that's tough. That's a difficult exercise. If you can master that, you're going to be in a really good position. And there's no reason. Let's be totally honest. That young people, they get these things very quick, so they'll enjoy it too as well. Just on the next one then, again, now this video was made back in level 1, so we're allowed to use these sausages. We're going to have to wait now till we get out of level 5. So again, just using the sausage as well. Now it became a bit of fun, and we're trying to but just to get into that good position again. And I think when you're overextend your arms like that, it's difficult. I'd say it's hard on you. But I think, again, you're able to learn that technique off it and just stay in that good, strong position. It's just something different using a sausage. And we'll just jump to the last one. I think at the end, Ciara was a bit fed up of Anne-Marie. So she just decided to get her own back. And again, look, it's always important to have a bit of fun too as well. Okay?
Left that one out.
Not at all.
It was very like the sled. Do you know, like the sled you'd have in the gym, or the prowler, some people call it. It's a very similar movement, and like that, it's great to to kind of explore what's the best body position for you, or what works best for you. Now, ideally, we want everybody in the power position, the proper tabletop scrum position, but that exercise is good as well, because it makes you hold that position and try and move forward like you would in reality in a scrum. Even though you're pushing from your hands, you can see there it was coming from my legs when obviously it started moving.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. No, but again, look, something we can use at training. There's loads of way to adapt, and look, this is only the starter. So we'll show you down the line. We'll show you how to use a ruck and shield. And that was a brilliant one, Anne-Marie. You showed me with the box and pulling your front row away, and that stuff we get to down the line. Yeah. So just on that, would anyone like any questions at all on that? Anything there at all that you want to hit us on? You can just turn on your mic and throw it in if you'd like. Okay, listen, look, everyone, after this, you can contact me at any stage, and I'll have a chat. But again, it'll be going up on the website, so you'll be able to go over it again. And maybe when you do go over it again, there might be something that you might want to hit me on. So again, my email is on the Connacht website, my phone number too as well. So I'd be delighted to talk to anyone on that. So listen, Anne-Marie, on that, thank you very much. I think that was brilliant. I learned a lot from it myself. So no, again, I think for people, don't be afraid, especially you think that the scrum is alien to you. If you can take on board from tonight and just understanding, getting into that good, strong body position, safe position, you're really on the ladder, and you're well up the ladder. As we explained, because that to me is one of the most important things, is actually just getting into that strong position first. We'll talk later on in the next webinar about building your scrum and connections and stuff like that. So listen, Anne-Marie, that was absolutely brilliant. So Matt, you want to take over now? We're just going to go through the hooker throw.
Yeah, definitely.
Matt, I'll let you go through the key points yourself there, yeah?
Perfect. So in terms of setting up for a throw, there's certain kind of cues that I use myself. These tend to be kind of pretty much where I tend to go from in terms of getting your feet shoulder width apart, getting into that power stance again, knees slightly bent, weight just over your toes, that you're always kind of just on that bite point of falling forward. In terms of engaging your core and chest, exactly what Anne-Marie said there earlier, it's about pulling those shoulders back, big chest, almost chest to chin is what we kind of tend to work on, and keeping that stomach and bum tensed so that, as Anne-Marie said, your whole body is tensed and ready for kind of what's coming next. Bringing the elbows into it then is rising the elbows up to match where your chest is. So your chest is nice and high, your elbows looking for a 90-degree angle at your shoulder and then also at your elbow, if possible. In terms of the wrist and the grip, making sure you have a neutral angle over the wrist. Exactly as Anne-Marie said on her scrummaging with her neck, what you want is for it to be straight as opposed to facing back or particularly facing forward. In terms of the throw, then it's about bringing the ball back and whipping through in one full motion. And when you've finished the motion of throwing, it's about keeping your two arms up and facing out and looking out through that kind of target towards where you were throwing to. And then just to finish off, it's about running towards where you're thrown. So obviously there's a lot of kind of line-out moves and mauls to join nowadays. So it's about running towards the next job.
Just on that, Matt, so like we see American footballer quarterback, they just let it fly. They're not in that real strong position, or if I'm throwing the pass, I'm not getting into that again, that real strong position like you were talking there about as a hooker. Why would that be? Like why do you have to get that into that real strong position?
I suppose it's because the lineup can take different time. You know, you can be stood there waiting to throw a ball or waiting for a particular call from your second rows or from anywhere in the lineout itself. So it's about maintaining you've got that strength, that endurance to get through and throw when you need to throw or how you need to throw. So it could be kind of hard and fast at the front. It could be lobbed over at three, or you could be going towards the back. So it's making sure it's a very kind of close skill in that you're throwing into one particular area. So that's why I think, as opposed to, as you said, an American football throw, really kind of letting go as much as possible. With the pass, it's a little bit more fluid. And this skill it's dependent on timing of kind of multiple moving parts of throwing into a line out or waiting on a call.
And something I thought, so when you're set and you have your hands up ready like that, if just say for instance, is timing awful important? Because if I hold something like this for a long time, will I lose power in my arms? So is timing very important from when a hooker gets ready with the ball back behind their head to throw? Compared if they're sitting there waiting for a line out to get ready, will that take away from their throw if they're in that position for a long time?
I don't think so. I think once you've set, it's about getting that process so that you are set and strong in that position, so that you've got your elbows nice and high, keeping the elbows in, and you're almost squeezing the ball into yourself. What that allows that comfort to know that wherever it's going to throw within the 5 or the 15, you're going to make it within and make the type of throw you want to have, whether it's hard and fast or lobbed or kind of all the way back. I don't think you lose power in any particular part of it.
Good. So again, going through that process every time, and for the hooker, they have the time to do that and get into that position, and they'll go from there. But would there be any examples if someone was underthrown? So what I mean by underthrown, that the ball didn't go high enough. Sometimes we see it hitting the prop in the back of the head or something. Yeah. Would there be anything as a coach that you'd be able to spot that the hooker is doing that had happened?
In particular is the release point of the ball, and once the throw has been completed, is making sure on that fifth point there is that you have two swans facing out, so two arms facing out, and the hooker is looking through their two hands, or where their hands are, towards where the throw was. What that allows for is the ball always remains high. If you don't, what happens is your hands or your arms can come down quite quickly, and you immediately see the ball traveling much lower. It's always at a downward angle, so as you said, it can and probably has hit the back of a prop's head the odd time. Or if it's released too early and the hooker isn't looking up, it can almost just go straight upwards, and as opposed to going where you want it to within the line out.
Yeah. And in the next webinar, we'll talk a bit more on the different types of throw, that if someone's jumping at the front, it obviously probably have to be a quicker. It's the timings is the same, the jump throw together. But if it's going further back, would you want to let the ball go different if you're thrown to the tail of the line out?
Yeah, definitely. It's about also the power through the ball, as you said there, what type of kind of throw you're going for. And it's all within, you have the same setup regardless of the throw. It's all about your release point and how high you're going to release the ball, whether it's a little bit further behind your head or it's a little bit kind of more in front of your, kind of at the top of your forehead.
So you'll hear some coaches talking about that jump throw and then throw jump. So what's the difference there?
Jump throw tends to be more kind of towards the front of the lineout. So it tends to be the jump and throw meeting each other at the same time. Whereas kind of throw jump is more so it's off a cue of the hooker usually. And the hooker is throwing towards where they need the jumper to be. So the hooker will throw at a particular point, and then the jumper will join and try and meet the throw at the top of it. So it's a predetermined, tends to be further back in the lineup, but it's a predetermined move to say that if I'm throwing to the fourth or fifth jumper, that they're going to meet that at the top of the throw.
Really good, I suppose, because if I'm at the tail and I jump, I'll be up in there waiting for that ball to come. So you want to get that ball, the hooker throw. But again, that's when we build a line out, we'll talk a bit more. So if you want to show some of your technique in the videos, and we'll talk through them. So we've a front on, side on, and from back behind. So
this is just bringing in. So this is where I'm talking about the kind of right angles at your shoulders and your elbow. As you can see, my elbows and my chest are nice and high. I'm looking up through the ball. One thing that I do myself is I use the seams of the ball as a bit of a cue. I put my thumbs on the seams of the ball. It's a nice thing to remind a hooker that they can, if they can, that's where they're pushing the ball through from. And then as I throw the ball, you can see I'm finishing nice and high and looking through. I'll see if I can pause that at the moment.
And just again, I see now what you mean again by going back to Scrum, the feet shoulder width apart, so you're nice and balanced then straight away.
Yeah. So as Anne-Marie said, it's into a nice power position, knees slightly bent, hip and core engaged, chest nice and high, and bringing those elbows up and in so that they're almost parallel with each other. And then kind of releasing the ball at a nice height and finishing nice and strong, looking out through my hands towards where the target was.
Why mask the hands finishing out the way?
It's to get the spin and flight of the ball, so that the ball will roll off your two hands, and it's a natural movement to get them out.
Brilliant, excellent.
Great. This is the behind. And that's just showing kind of running towards where the next action or next job will be.
Yeah, and is that benefiting the throw as well, just getting that bit of run in action in any way?
It gets a bit of momentum into it as well, especially if it's a further back throw as well. You've really got, I suppose it's twofold. If it's further back, you've got immediately that action, that momentum into it. If you know it's going to be a kind of 2 or a 4 ball, you know that you can join either a maul or the next kind of job quicker.
Yeah. I suppose it's like kicking the ball over the post. That follow through is so important.
Exactly.
All the time. Yeah, no, really good.
So this is side on angle. Hopefully this shows the knees slightly bent there, hips, core, chest engaged, elbows nice and high, looking for approximately that 90-degree angle at my elbows and my shoulders. So I'll play this through. And finishing nice and high with that slight forward momentum at the end.
And I even see there you're going up on your tippy toes.
Yeah, I suppose when it's just bringing that kind of, that's my release of power, to be honest. That's how it kind of manifests itself from there.
From the ground up. Yeah,
from the ground up, exactly. And that kind of highlights there is again just looking through that finished position. You know, really good cue as well.
So that's again. So, and going back to what we said earlier on about where the ball finishes, I think if those hands are finishing that bit lower, yeah, you're going to get that underthrow. I think so. It's really important again just to see where that their hands are finishing. So those good habits from early on. Again, you're going to coach. You'll get to a stage with your player, your hooker, because you've taught them how to do it properly. You don't even want to tell them. You say, you'll just ask them, why do you think that ball went low that time? And they'll know straight away, oh, my hands finished low. So then straight away the next time they'll know it themselves. We won't have to tell them all the time. Yeah. Okay. So Matt, excellent, brilliant examples there. I know I just want to make sure that this is done in the hour. So for anyone, would anyone have any questions there for Matt on the throw? Or anything you might be getting your players to do now at the moment is for training, that they can go off if they're interested themselves before the session or at the end of the session. Is there any exercise that they'd like to do?
For myself, is it JP? Yeah.
No, just going to ask anyone that's, I think the coaches that's on. You yourself, if you were on your own, Matt.
I've been doing this.
You're on your own.
I've been doing this myself over the last couple of weeks. Is heading down with a couple of rugby balls, or even outside my house, finding a point on a wall and trying to hit it multiple times. Or pre kind of level 5 was going down, and a bit of hooker throwing for me was trying to hit the crossbar from different lengths or different kind of distances out the pitch. So starting either 2 meters and hitting the crossbar, and moving 2 meters if I got the throw, and then 1 meter in if I didn't. So constantly moving back and essentially trying to get back to at least the kind of 15 or 22 mark. I know you've got a powerful throw then.
Yeah, no, excellent.
Just a question there, Matt. John Golden here, Ballina. A lot of people hold the ball behind their head for a while. Is that a bad habit to get into, or do you just pull it back and throw it straight away?
I think it's personal preference, to be honest, John. So I always start right in front of my, just a kind of above my forehead. You'll see a lot of hookers nowadays will start with straight arms up. It depends on the hooker's preference, really. As long as they've got that, as long as wherever they start, they maintain that really strong process or kind of starting position with their elbows nice and tight, wrists neutral, knees slightly bent, kind of weight just over your toes there as well. And as long as they're finishing in the right position as well, what you'll see is it doesn't matter whether they start kind of in front of the face, up on top, or behind their head. As long as they keep their elbows nice and tight and finishing strong, and finishing quite true, then and looking through that finishing position, it means that they can go towards where they need to be.
Cheers, thanks, Matt.
No problem.
JP, Mihal Glennon here.
Hey, how are you getting on?
Good, and yourself?
Nice.
Just have a question for Matt there about is there any little exercise that we can use for the hooker to visualize where the jumper might be if we're not, at lifting at the moment? What kind of exercise would you do to have them visualize where the ball, what height they need to be throwing the ball at?
Yeah. So initially, what we used to do, and you'll see a lot on, if you look at some kind of teams nowadays, is starting kneeling down. So kneeling down, getting that core engaged, and having one person stood maybe kind of 5 or 4 or 5 meters away. If the hooker is kneeling down, they get into the full position of getting their kind of core engaged and their kind of stomach and bum tensed and their shoulders up, elbows in, and they're hitting the coach or whoever it is kind of 4 or 5 meters away. That can build up to their visualizing roughly where that distance is going to be, kind of in terms of them looking up through that finished position. So that's one I'd recommend. For myself, I know in terms of individual training, I tend to go down and I focus on a point. So for me, I focus on maybe the corner, looking at a crossbar, or the rugby posts. I focus on the point, and I know if I can hit that, and I can hit roughly where else I want it to be, whether it's a bit higher, a bit lower, I can work from there.
Very good. Thank you.
No problem.
Just in that one, I think, would it be benefit? I'm sure every club has an old a brush, a sweeping brush in the dress rooms, and just to take it out and maybe just using the brush and putting it up and seeing can they actually hit the brush, the top of the brush, a nice tight little target. But something like that, might be of benefit too as well. But I think Matt's dead right, that because when you get them on their knees, they're getting into that strong position, and still by on your knees, you are thrown up the weight to someone. So again, it's a very good exercise to engage in the core. Thanks for that, Miguel.
Perfect, thank you.